What's up with calling Jayson Tatum soft? Can the Celtics catch the Cavs? What about the Thunder? Could this year's team beat last year's team or vice versa? It's all right now on a mailbag episode of the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Yup. Beantown, be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Back to back, if I say it, it's stamp. Locked on number 19, the best one, the next one. Juice loose in your pool now for the next run. It's the C's, who else could it be? What they gon' say now? Screaming like JT Karalis, recap the madness every game, every practice. Best daily pod, no cap like Brad Beckett. Clutch like Drew to KP, tap in daily. Prime time dapping D White on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. I'm here for you Monday through Friday. This is the Friday show, bonus podcast on the weekend when they play. So Friday night, Celtics Kings. I will be there after the game. So bonus podcast then. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Watch the show on YouTube. Get into that comment section. Join your fellow Celtics fan. Get into those threads. Get that discussion going. Have some fun over there. I'm John Karalis. If you're new to the show, thank you. Welcome aboard. If you're new, I hope you subscribe. I've been covering the Celtics for about 20 years. I'm doing it now as a beat writer for Boston Sports Journal. I'm there. I'm talking to everybody. So I'm giving you a little bit inside, in-depth look here at the Boston Celtics. I'd love it if you shared the podcast as well. Spread the word. Really help me kind of grow this show. Today's show brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. We're opening up the mailbag, which you can get to at johnkaralis.com/mailbag. That's johnkaralis.com/mailbag. Later on, we'll talk about retiring Derrick White's number. Sure. This year's team versus last year's team, who would win. We'll get into double bigs and all of that stuff. Can the Celtics catch the Cavs, OKC? But I want to start here with Carlos, who says, what do you make of Brandon Jennings calling Jayson Tatum soft? Why does Tatum keep getting hit with that label? I don't want to talk about stuff like this because people like Brandon Jennings and Gilbert Arenas are really just, this is a pure shock value type of show. They are, they've seen the landscape in the media. They're like, oh, can we make money being outlandish and saying things that just get reactions? And they're trying to do that. They're trying to do a bad imitation of Stephen A. Smith, who, even though I am not a fan of those debate shows or anything like that, is the absolute best at what he does. And he does it with a certain style and flair. And he's good at being provocative, not outrageous all the time. There's a little difference. It's a fine line. But so number one, when Brandon Jennings says, if you're so tough, why didn't you get finals MVP last year? Why did you let your running mate do it? That's one of the dumbest. And I just want to say that for NBA players who have a criticism of people like me, even though I played at a high level, I didn't play in the NBA. People in the media, you're like, you don't know, you didn't play. If any player says you don't know, you didn't play, and you let Brandon Jennings slide, that's crap. Because what he said is crap. And this notion of you're so tough, why didn't you get finals MVP last year? And you're calling a player soft for not getting finals MVP. What is that? That makes no sense. Is Draymond Green soft? Is Steph Curry soft because Andre Iguodala won a finals MVP? Or are they part of the greatest team of all time? Or is Steph Curry not an absolute mega superstar that's won multiple championships? What is that logic? But let's be clear. Brandon Jennings has no logic because he has no brain. This is just one of the dumbest comments you can make. And this notion that Tatum is soft because what? Because he's not dunking on everybody? Because he's not Anthony Edwards? Because he's not out there completely taking over every fourth quarter, whether it's to the detriment of his team or not? I would rather have a Jayson Tatum out there than an Anthony Edwards right now, because Anthony Edwards is not a winning player. He's a high-scoring player, and he's on a good team. They'll win plenty of games, but he's not winning anything anytime soon. He's too young. He's too dumb at this point 23 years old. He's just worried about himself. He's not playing smart. He's not playing for his team. He's playing for himself. Guys like that, but they're the ones that are like the standard, right? Like that's Jayson Tatum because he did things to let his teammates flourish. That's somehow soft. Tell that to the ring on his finger. I love team basketball. If Brandon Jennings was maybe more of a team player, maybe he would have had a better career. If Gilbert Arenas was a bit more of a team player, he wouldn't have been as a joke in Washington. Oh, you're hard. What's the Gilbert Arenas, like, what did you show? Like you pulled a gun in a locker room. Does that make you not soft versus Tatum because he's an actual human being who covers himself, like conducts himself well, and you're out there playing with, doing this stuff? Like that stuff is absolute garbage to me. And I know I'm breaking my own rule by mentioning these guys by name, but I was asked about it, and it is front and center. Joe Mazzulla was asked about it. Jayson Tatum responded to it on his social media. And I know, like, none of us should be responding to it, but it's so ridiculously stupid that when you have that opinion, it tells me more about you than the opinion you're trying to get across. That's the where I land on that. Nick says the Cavs are on a roll. You were asked a couple of weeks ago if you think the Celtics could catch the Cavs by the All-Star break. What about now? Could they catch them now? Can they catch them at all? No. They're definitely not catching them by the All-Star break. The Cavs are now 6 games ahead of the Boston Celtics. They are 33-4. The Cavs are on a 73-win pace. That is silly. 73-win pace. This is not a 73-win team, but kudos to them, man. They are putting it together, right? They're finding ways to win. They won. Who'd they beat? They just won without Donovan Mitchell. They're just finding they're finding wins where they couldn't find wins throughout last season. The Celtics, meanwhile, are on a nice pace, 60-win pace. 60-win team is a really good team, right? You win 60 games, and for all of the consternation about the Celtics this year, they are still on a 60-win pace. Not a lot of 60-win teams in history, right? Those 60-win teams are always like the top, the cream of the crop. So the Celtics, even if the Cavs level off a little bit, how much are they going to level off? Because for the Cavs to come down to 60 games, they're going to have to go 28-18, 27-18 the rest of the way. That's just not, they're not going to do that. They're not falling to that level. They're not losing 18 games the rest of the way to get to 22 losses. They will lose more than 4 games the rest of the way. They should. So let's just say they settle at like 65, 66, 67 wins. Celtics have to basically win like 40 games the rest of the way, 40-5. No. And the Celtics don't need to do it. They don't need to catch the Cavs. Let's be honest. They do not need to catch the Cavaliers. They do not need to get that top seed to have a clear path to the NBA Finals. If they have to start on the road in Cleveland, I am fine with that. I still think the Celtics have the matchups against Cleveland. They've beaten Cleveland once. They played that second time. They had it, and it took Donovan Mitchell scoring 20 points in the fourth quarter to beat the Celtics. Celtics are definitely complicit in that, but also it took like a ridiculous outlier fourth quarter performance for Donovan Mitchell. So bottom line is I think the Celtics have the like they can beat the Cavs. They have places they can attack. The Cavs do not. I still believe that, and I think that matters. Can the Celtics win a game in Cleveland? Absolutely. Can they win 2? Absolutely. Now, I'm not going to sit there and be like they're going to sweep or anything like that, but we'll see what happens when we get there. But the Celtics beating the Cavaliers in the playoffs, no matter what, they could play all the games in Cleveland. I still think the Celtics would win that series. So I'm not worried about them getting the 2 seed. At this point, I'm not worried about them catching the Cavaliers. Go ahead. Congratulations to the Cavaliers. I am ready to concede the top seed right now because making up 6 games against a team like Cleveland with half a season left, unless, and I do not want this, unless they suffer some sort of major injury, I don't see them falling to the level where the Celtics play to the next level where they catch up. It's not worth it. I don't care. Don't expend your energy. I made the marathon analogy. This is like mile 9 of the marathon. Don't worry about it. Don't chase it. 2nd seed is fine. 3rd seed would be fine if it fell to that. I don't mind. If the Celtics are healthy going into the season, into the postseason, if they're healthy, I am comfortable with them wherever they land. What about OKC? What about, can the Celtics catch OKC? This is more a perception thing. We'll talk about that when we come back. Today's show is brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Are you tired of the endless waiting, wondering, and worrying about your taxes? Well, that is now a thing of the past. You see, taxes don't need to be complicated or stressful. TurboTax is here to change the game by matching you with a TurboTax expert who can get to work on your return right away. No more waiting for answers. No more wondering if you're missing out on deductions, whether you've got one form or 20. TurboTax experts give your taxes the undivided attention while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on what really matters. You don't have to lift a finger, but you'll get the peace of mind knowing that your taxes are being handled by the pros. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today to get matched with your expert who's ready to take your taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day. It's only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Tomorrow after the game, you'll see 2 podcasts on this audio feed. The YouTube page gets untouched, but on the audio feed, you'll see Locked On Celtics and Postcast. Postcast, Steve Lennox goes on live on the Locked On Sports Boston YouTube page. He's live right after the game, immediate reaction. So you get that. And then after that, you go to bed, or depending on where you live, I will be there for you in the morning with a fresh, free podcast, in depth. I'll be back there while he's doing his podcast. I'll be talking to the players. I'll be talking to Joe Mazzulla. I'll be diving back into like the numbers and the video and all that stuff. So you're going to get the most in-depth podcast when I'm dropping my podcast. So make sure you're getting that. They're both on the Locked On Celtics audio feed. Back to the mailbag. Jacob says at the beginning of the season, the Celtics were in front of the Thunder in quite a few different perspectives. Now the tables have turned. What can the Celtics do to catch back up? This is the same concept as the Cavs thing. There's no need to catch back up to the Thunder. This is a misconception. You're not catching up to anything. This is not a, I know I've made the race analogy, but this is not a measuring of like, oh, who's ahead now? Well, who's ahead now? Who's ahead now? No, this is more about the Celtics just need to catch up with themselves. All the Celtics need to do is focus on themselves, focus on getting Kristaps Porzingis right and making sure like he's healthy and all of that stuff, making sure that he's a big part of this offense and defense, making sure that guys who have been maybe struggling with their shot get some clean looks playing off of Porzingis. And this plays into this question from Susan, who says, you've discussed the Celtics' challenges facing physical defenses and some cold shooting slumps. What are your thoughts on the coaching and team ability to make in-game adjustments when the shots aren't falling? This is an area of improvement for Joe and all of that. So all of this is to say they need to focus on when Porzingis is out there, getting back into the flow through KP when he's, up in the high post. You need to get more offense through him sometimes. You need to have that option. Not having Porzingis there does take away a big dimension of what the Celtics have done on both ends of the floor. But I feel like they just need a little bit more time. And when it comes to OKC and that loss, that second half, let's remember the Celtics didn't have Derrick White. And I think when you look at Thunder Cavs, Derrick White would have been able to do a lot of the stuff to the OKC defense that Darius Garland was doing. Not having that option really, I think, hurt the Celtics. And I know they still had Tatum and Brown and all of that, and they had the lead. They should. It's not that they need Derrick to beat the Thunder, but he's a starter, and he's an all-star caliber starter. So I think that game, if it wasn't played on the third game of 4 nights, and if they had Derrick White, I think that game might have gone differently. Now, maybe the Thunder still would have won because they played a great second half. They played great defensively, but they were ramped up for that. So I just feel like when it comes to the adjustments and all of that, in a playoff scenario would have been different. I think in a different scenario, even in the regular season there, if it wasn't the 3 and 4, it might have been a little bit different. So I'm less concerned than some people when it comes to the Celtics and their standing in comparison to the Thunder or the Cavs or any of that. The Celtics are still, I believe, the team to beat. Just because they don't have that same juice, I'm not ready to say that they've fallen behind. I think the circumstances coming off of that championship, the Olympics, not having KP to start the season, and just a little bit of, I'll call it complacency. I don't think it's exactly complacency, but a little bit of that just mentality of we're okay. We don't need to do this. And Joe has talked about, he said it before the Denver game. I brought it up before. This concept of post-consciousness versus unconsciousness, and the Thunder and the Cavs are the unconscious teams that are just, they're pursuing something, and the Celtics are the post-conscious team that understands, well, I know what it takes to win a championship now, so I'm just going to kind of do that. I'm not going to be what they are, which is constantly chasing and trying to prove. Celtics are like, we've proven. We know what we got to do. We're good. So I think some of like the Cavs being on a 73-win pace and the Thunder playing the way they're playing, having a 15-game winning streak, just getting that snapped, they are, and I'm going to use the Predator analogy, not the movie, the wild animal Predators analogy for that Joe Mazzulla loves. An inexperienced predator will chase its potential meal, and put a lot of energy into it, and will viciously pursue and not always catch whatever it's trying to track down. Whereas the experienced predator will, if it looks like the prey is starting to get away, they'll pull up the chase and be like, not worth my time, not worth my energy. I'm just going to go back and crouch in this bush and wait for the next one to come by, because I feel pretty good. I know how to do this, and I'll get something. Congratulations on you getting away. I got something else coming. So one of your buddies is going to be my lunch. And I just think that's the difference between the Thunder and the Celtics, and the Cavs and the Celtics. The Thunder and the Cavs are chasing. The Celtics know how to catch their dinner. The Celtics know what it takes. They're not going to expend all the same energy that the Thunder and the Cavs are. And, that's a little tough. Like during the regular season, we will look at a game and be like, that is a huge game. I can't wait for that. And the Celtics are like, 1 of 82. And it is a big game, and it's I'm overstating that kind of attitude a little bit, but basically they sit there and they think, not a big deal. They come out of it like the OKC game. Porzingis said, we played stupid. And you did, and it hurts, and you don't come out of it and just blow it off, but you also understand you take out of it what you're going to take out of it, and then you flush it. Yeah, they played stupid, and you look at it, you're like, God, I can't believe that I didn't get to that space. That's so dumb. And I can see it. I can see the film session in my head where people are just going to be like, oh, God, what a dumb thing that I did there. And it's fine. You figure it out. You realize it. You understand if you don't do that all the time, you do have the potential to lose. And those reminders are okay. So I'm not too worked up about it. We'll come back. We'll talk about double bigs. We'll talk about last year versus this year and all of that. It's coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money can help you find some subscriptions that you forgot that you were paying for. Maybe you were paying for it twice. It's happened to me. I got married. My wife and I each had our own subscriptions, our own streaming services, all of that stuff. And, you get together and you're like, you don't sit there in your relationship and go, oh, wait, let's combine our screen. What are you paying for this? Okay, I'm going to pay for that. No, you forget because you're madly and deeply in love. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscription, your spending habits, even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. They have a subscription tracker. You can use it to cancel services. They've got a goals feature that automatically sets money aside for your future, so no more stressing about budgeting every month. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Up next, make it Locked On NBA. Locked On NBA Game Night with me and Jake Madison covering all of the night's games in the NBA. Lots to talk about there. So we're next on Fridays. It's me and Jake on Locked On NBA Game Night. Subscribe to that. You'll be subscribed also to the afternoon show, which is all the big stories in the league, debate style. So check that out wherever you get your podcasts. First, I want to say thank you to everybody who reminded me, all of the people who went to johnkaralis.com/mailbag, even somebody who put in the name Bob Saget. That's the name. I'm so happy that everybody reminded me. He was one of the stars of Full House. He is, a TV dad, or was, unfortunately. And off TV, he was a very raunchy comic. And that's, I was comparing myself to that because off this show, I am not shy about working blue, let's say. But on this podcast, all G-rated, so you can, I'd say 99.9% of the time, listen to it with your kids. Let's get to a Big Meech. Talk to me about all the double big we've been running as of late. Cornette is holding it down for sure, but what caused it? You feel like it's sustainable? Remember at the beginning of the season when we sat there and we're like, oh my God, the Celtics are giving up so many points in the paint. Oh, geez, look at all these points in the paint that they're giving up. Well, that's kind of why. When the Celtics aren't double big, they're not protecting the rim. And protecting the rim is a priority. It is one of the number one things that teams want to do because the hierarchy of shots is still layups and dunks, uncontested layups and dunks, free throws, then three-pointers, That's the hierarchy: corner 3-pointers, and then you're above the break 3-pointers. But they want to protect the rim. They want to play their defense. The Celtics' defensive strategy is basically protect the rim, run the good shooters off the line into the teeth of that, and let them kick out to the guys that you will live with shooting the shots. And so Russell Westbrook gets 7 3-pointers against the Celtics. He hit 4, and that's not what the Celtics want, but you are happy to funnel shots out to those guys. So the Celtics will give up 3-pointers, but they generally give them up to specific players. That's the Celtics strategy. So run the good shooters off the line into double big lineups, and those guys kick it to Russ can have that shot. And if Russ hits it, he hits it. This is not the regular season strategy to win 73 games. This is the postseason strategy to dare somebody to hit 4 of 7. Let's just say it's a finals series. Okay, Russ, 4 of 7 from 3. Do it again tomorrow. Do it again the next day. Do it in game 2, game 3, game 4, game 5. Go ahead. We dare you. And we'll see how it goes. But I think the Celtics will kind of go with that. But they also don't have to. I think it's a good way to work in some of their depth and keep Cornette and Keita to some degree engaged. And they might close with it gives them an option. You can close with Horford and Porzingis in with Jayson, Jaylen, and one of White and Holiday if you need to. It gives guys like Cornette opportunity to stay sharp in case Porzingis isn't playing, he gets hurt. So that's, I think, the overall kind of reasoning. There are multiple facets to it. Matt asks, do you think this year's team beats last year's team? This year, the team has played some gorgeous basketball, but has a lot more uncharacteristic losses. I think this year's team loses to last year's team in the regular season. I think this year's team beats last year's team in the playoffs because that's what the Celtics are geared to do this year. They have the experience, and I think their style of play is a little bit different and all of that. Just a tiny bit, just offensively, the shots that they're getting. I think last year's team is much like the OKC and the Cavs. So last year's team would, if you could put it out there, like, hey, this is the champion, the champions, and like you would expect them to, last year's team, to really push hard and really try to win that game. I think this year's team would also try to win that game, but just wouldn't have the same juice. So regular season, in a 3-game series of, regular season, last year's team would win a couple. This year's team might win one. And then in the playoffs, I think this year's team would win because that's what they are. That's what they're built to do. Aaron asks, what would it take for the Celtics to retire Derrick White's number? A couple more championships. So Derrick would have to win. I think he'd have to have 3 rings, at least 2, maybe 3 to be considered. Maybe make an all-star team or 2, but the Celtics honor their champions, and especially if they win another one. But if they do win 3, and if somehow like Derrick's part of a team that doesn't have a Drew Holiday or Kristaps Porzingis or both, and they manage to win somehow, then he would definitely, I think, get his number retired. It's I'm not saying he is going to. It would take a lot. He would have to be this consistent for a few more years too. Like, it's been a couple years of good play. But that's like, they're not going to retire Isaiah Thomas's number. So it needs to be a longer, like he needs to be here for maybe 4 or 5 more years playing at a high level. And he's in his 30s. So it's going to be tough. Maybe he can make an all-star team depending on how the East shakes out and how the rest of the team shakes out. But consistently high play, at least one more championship, maybe 2, and we can see it happen. It's not out of the question. It's possible. And finally, we're going to get this question from Robert he says it. It's a bit of a logistics question. I'm using it as a tease. Would Locked On ever consider an optional paid ad-free version of podcasts on the network? I think many people would potentially be interested in this. Well, Robert, good news. If you've got Amazon Prime, which you pay for, then you can get this show ad-free. It is on Amazon Prime, so go check it out on Amazon Music. Just so you know, like I do all of the work here. I produce the show. I edit the show afterwards. I post it on all the feeds. And then one of the things that I do is I cut out the ads that I just read and send that off to Amazon and post there. So there you go. So go check that out. If you want ad free, there it is. I would like it if you frequented our sponsors, because that's how I get paid. I'd like to get paid for what I do. And Amazon pays, for that as well, but whatever. You don't need to know all that. I just would love it if you frequented our partners like Rocket Money or TurboTax or any of our other fine partners. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you being a part of this show on a regular basis. Hopefully you're here every day, Monday through Friday. I got a bonus podcast coming up tomorrow after the game, so make sure you're subscribed on the audio feed. Watch the show on YouTube, and then get into the comment section. Join your fellow Celtics fans, and then share the podcast. Tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.